Assalamualaikum everyone and welcome to the first day of ACCA Pakistan's Global Ethics Day activity. It is a great day for us because हमारी आज Global Ethics Day की सारी activities kick off हो रही हैं with this session and we are very excited because ethics का बहुत बड़ा important role है in the life of an accountant and in the life of an ACCA member or future member. And we hold ethics very dearly to our own self. So if you need more study sessions and incidentally days hold a great importance for us. It is one of the most exciting days for us, and this is the first in a series of panel discussions that you will see on our pages and हमारे जो members हमारे sponsors हैं उनके pages पे आपको नजर आएंगी. It is going to be an ongoing activity, so we are definitely thankful for all of our sponsors for this as well. We have HPL, CFA Society, ICMA, CSX. We have a lot of big names that I will also be taking guidance from. We have some great panelists today as well, who I will briefly introduce to you as well. And also, मैं एक हमारा आज का topic है उसके ऊपर बस briefly touch करूँगी कि हमारे आज के panel discussion है ethics and trust, regulatory coherence in the digital age. Ethics and trust, I think it's a synonym. दोनों में कोई डिफरेंस नहीं है जहाँ पे ethics एक ethical person होगा कि वही trust build कर सकेगा with their organization, so with a third party organization or with other people as well. So I think कि both of these things go hand in hand. In digital age में हमारा जो advancements हो रही है वहाँ पर ethics को किस तरह से how it plays a role. That is a very interesting aspect, and we hear from our panelists who I would like to briefly introduce. Let me just have our panel up on the screen. We have Usman Hayat, who is the CEO of Audit, Oversight Board. We have Sadat Shafi, who is the Director of CFA Society Pakistan. We have Ihsan Malik, CEO, Pakistan Business Council. Inayat Hussain, Executive Director, FS and DST, State Bank of Pakistan. Sadia Khan, Commissioner, Securities and Exchange Commission of Pakistan. Bushra Naz Malik, who is a member of the Competition Commission of Pakistan, and that is a very esteemed panel. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining us, and thank you so much for shedding light on ethics and ethics for an ACCA person as well. Before I hand it over to Sadat, I would like to briefly also tell my audience कि आपको अपने comment section में कोई भी अगर सवाल किसी भी हमारे panelists से related आपको पूछना है, आपको कुछ confusion है, आपको कोई concern अपना देने है, कोई comment अपना encouraging या advice कुछ भी अगर आपने हमारे panelists से communicate करना है, you can share that in the comment section and we will be taking your questions later on. So over to you, Sadat.
Thank you, Aksa, for the kind introduction. It's a pleasure to be with our esteemed panelists today, and we appreciate the time that they have taken out for this discussion. The session today is on ethics and trust, regulatory coherence in the digital age. So the rise of the digital economy is one of the defining features of the 21st century, and it's fundamentally transforming the way that we live and work together. The revolution has provided us with new means of communication and collaboration, automation of tasks with artificial intelligence, role of data as driver of economic growth, opportunities for increased financial inclusion, and emergence of so many new business models. But it comes with its own set of challenges as well. The potential for growth is immense, but at the same time, the opportunities for exploitation and unethical behavior have also increased. And growth and participation in digital economy can only come with trust in the system, that the interests of businesses and consumers are protected, which is where governments and regulators come in. And on our panels today, we have 4 regulators, and they play a major role in both encouraging digital innovation as well as limit any potential unintended negative consequences through the minimum regulatory framework. So while it's a vast topic and it's challenging to discuss in a short session, but I would like to start off with the issue which is at the core of digitization, or let's say on how fast we can move towards digitization, and which is data privacy. So someone has very rightly said that without trust, there is no data. Without data, there is no creation of value. And without creation of value, there are no opportunities for people. So I would like to start off with Inayat Sahab from State Bank of Pakistan. If you could elaborate upon steps taken by State Bank with respect to data privacy, protection, and potential misuse of data, which
Sabah,
forms.
before we dive into our panel discussion, can I have some remarks from Mohammed Shoaib? Because I think he can shed a very relevant light on the subject as well. So could we get some comments from you, sir?
Sure, sure. The Shoaib, over to you for some opening remarks.
Thank you so much, Sadaf. Honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. For those of you who have not interacted with me before, my name is Mohammed Shoaib, CFA. I'm Advocacy and Gifts Chair for CFA Society Pakistan, in addition to being a member of its board of directors. And my day job is as Chief Executive Officer for Al Mizan Investment Management Limited. On behalf of the Global Ethics Week organizers, CFA Society Pakistan, ACCA Pakistan, Center for Excellence in Responsible Business, Pakistan Stock Exchange, Pakistan Business Council, and ICMA Pakistan, I welcome you all to the 2020 edition of the Global Ethics Day events. I am very pleased to share with you that this time we have organized these events for almost the entire week, and they are all scheduled in the evenings to provide you the maximum opportunity to participate. While the global pandemic has created a lot of challenges for all of us, it has also opened new opportunities to connect more often and electronically. While last year we had our physical events on Ethics Day in Karachi, Islamabad, and Lahore, where some of the members of this esteemed panel also participated in interaction with the audience, this year you have the flexibility to attend all our events, irrespective of where you are residing. Ladies and gentlemen, as you may know, that all the key sponsors of these Ethics Day events share the common vision of advancing ethics in all aspects of professional life. In fact, promoting ethical behavior is part of the mission of all entities, as in the financial sector, the element of trust in your investment advisor, in your investment manager, your consultant, or broker dealer is of utmost importance. Professions can only exist and flourish within an industry when those acting with transparency, integrity, candor, and trust reach a critical mass. Hence, the core area of focus of these key stakeholders organizing these events is to promote the highest possible standards of ethics. We are especially grateful to Securities and Exchange Commission of Pakistan, State Bank of Pakistan, and Competition Commission of Pakistan as regulators for supporting these initiatives. Since we are going to talk a lot about ethics, let me share a quote, which is not an accurate quote, but it basically says that the ethics is something that you are going to do anyways, even if nobody is looking, and even if there's an incentive to do the wrong thing. Based on the context of our religion, I describe being ethical as being Sadiq and Amin, the traits of our Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So if somebody is Sadiq and Amin, I would say this is equivalence of being ethical. Ladies and gentlemen, it would be unfair to audience if I don't share today one of the key initiatives by CFA Society Pakistan, which goes all year round beyond the Ethics Day events, which is going to be for 1 week this year. The society has got a design and ethical decision-making workshop of about 90 minutes, which are being offered not only to the firms engaged in financial services like banks, asset management companies, insurance companies, banks, etc., but also to the regulators to equip their employees with good practical understanding of ethical dilemmas and appropriate ethical decisions in such situations. While a total of 10 workshops have been conducted by Mr. Alan Locke, Director of Ethics for CF Institute, who visited Pakistan for 5 days last year, now we have a complete team of 10 charter holders based in Pakistan who have gone through the rigorous Train the Trainer program by CF Institute and are certified as certified ethics trainers. Recently, such sessions have been conducted for some banks and in fact, today, just an hour ago, I was at one of the sessions which was conducted for PSX, Pakistan Stock Exchange Brokers Association, and there are more in the pipeline. Only today, we have been confirmed a session for the management trainees or new management trainees of CCPP, which will be conducted later this month. Ladies and gentlemen, I know you are very keen for the program to progress so that you can learn from insightful thoughts from the first esteemed panel of Global Ethics Day events. And as Sadaf mentioned, the first session is on ethics and trust, regulatory coherence in digital age. So over to you, Sadaf, to carry on the session as a moderator. Thank you.
Thank you, Shoaib. I think you have put into context the entire plan for Global Ethics Day events in context with your opening remarks. So I would like to now start the panel discussion, starting with Inayat Saab. If you could kindly elaborate upon steps taken by State Bank with respect to data privacy, protection, and potential misuse of consumer data, which forms the base of the digital economy. If you could elaborate from the point of view of digitization within the State Bank itself as it's moving towards e-governance, and secondly, from the point of view of institutions which fall under your purview. And where do you think Pakistan stands vis-a-vis other developing economies? What challenges do we face, and what are State Bank's plans going forward?
Thank you very much, Sadaf. I hope you can hear me.
You are loud and clear.
Thank you very much. So there are actually two aspects of data security and data confidentiality or data privacy. So in terms of data security, State Bank of Pakistan, of course, collects a lot of data from financial institutions that it regulates, and we also do collect a lot of data from other stakeholders as well. Previously, we used to collect all this data through emails or through USBs, but it has now been quite some time that we have shifted to a centralized data portal arrangements. So under these arrangements, the financial institutions or our partner institutions from which we collect data, they can directly access that data portal. And the benefit is that this data portal has data encryption facilities. So the data is encrypted from end to end. Then it is also protected through two-factor authentication. And we also ensure that only trusted devices can access this data portal. So from that perspective, it is fully protected. The second stage is the data validation, that the data we get is of good quality, and we ensure that there are no issues with that data. So the data validation checks are performed in this data portal. And the third is that the data that we get, I mean the data repository, it is properly protected. So there are good cyber defenses in place in State Bank of Pakistan in terms of that the network systems, the applications, the devices, the end user devices that we use, they are patched and updated on as regularly as is required. In terms of data privacy, as you rightly pointed out, that we do have substantial consumer data. This data is both confidential and in certain cases highly sensitive in nature. So in that terms, we have protocols in place to make sure that who can actually access that information. So anybody that it is on, of course, need to know basis. So everybody cannot access all the information. Only those persons can access that information that really needed for their supervisory work. And there is a proper protocol in place to actually authorize the person that can access that data. We have made sure that that data cannot be, for example, downloaded on any external devices, and we have also made sure that unauthorized person cannot access that. So in terms of the security and the confidentiality of data within State Bank of Pakistan is fully protected. Now, being the central bank and being because the data that we have is very sensitive and confidential, we do have some sort of limitations on external validation. But even to that account, we have actually entered into partnership with some multilateral bodies to ensure that there are no gaps. And as of now, our collaboration has, I mean, the multilateral agencies that actually collaborated with us in that respect, we are pretty comfortable and confident that the checks and balances and controls that we have put in place, they are effective and up to date. In terms of ensuring the confidentiality and security of data at financial institutions that we regulate, there is a very comprehensive framework that is IT governance framework that has been issued by State Bank of Pakistan, and it of course it encompasses each and everything that I've just talked about and a lot more. For example, for the financial institution, we also required that they should have done some sort of what we call penetration testing by the third parties. And during the inspection, we checked that the controls, checks and balances that we have prescribed for financial institutions, they are in place. And for example, the external validation testing has been done and things like that. Now, in terms of where do we stand vis-a-vis global financial institutions, it would really be very difficult to pass a judgment. But what I can say with reasonable confidence is that the global standards that are used by financial institutions abroad in other jurisdictions, including Gulf countries, we are following the same best practices. Now, having said that, there is a sort of an ongoing struggle or battle. We all understand that the digitization is on a rise, especially during the COVID-19, when a good number of employees of banks and financial institutions, they were working from home. There were a lot of challenges. For example, to ensure that all the people who are working from home, they have trusted devices which are properly certified, and only those trusted devices can access the systems of financial institutions. Likewise, we have seen very substantial increase in the use of alternate delivery channels by the customers of the banks, because most of the people, of course, because of the coronavirus issue, they do not want to visit branches. So they migrated to alternate delivery channels. So it resulted in substantial increase in the load on the systems of the bank. But so far we have seen that the banks, in collaboration with the central bank, they were actually able to handle that load, and they were also able to actually manage the challenges arising out of this work from home and ancillary issues. So have I answered all of your questions, or have I left something? I'm sorry, I'm having some trouble in communicating through. There's some issue with the.
No, I think you have answered all the questions very comprehensively. And I can tell you that COVID has really helped digital banking, because I migrated to digital banking during COVID. Before that, I was very much a checkbook and a branch person, but COVID, I think, has really facilitated the regulator's goal if digitization was one of your goals. So I would also like to ask you that with digitization, with advent of fintech and mushroom growth of e-commerce, how is State Bank managing the challenges to maintain the level of KYC and AML compliances, which are so heavy for the traditional financial sector? And we have been hearing about eKYC as well. So, what is the sanctity of that? If you could just elaborate, because this is also
Okay.
about level playing field of different players as well. So, while our traditional sector is heavily regulated, at the same time, the trust issue when we go towards the smaller fintech ventures, that can we trust our data with them, with our bank account details, with our credit card details, etc.
Okay. So starting with the KYC and AML standards. No, it has been it is globally accepted that these standards actually should be applied on a risk-based basis. So even within, for example, one particular financial institutions, they may actually use different KYC and AML standards that will be fine-tuned to the nature of the product that they are actually offering to a particular segment of the customer. So we actually are and will be using the same approach for dealing with different types of financial institutions. So, for example, the KYC and AML standard for a bank that is offering a wide variety of financial products across a very wide range of the customer would be different than the standards that should be used by, for example, an e-money issuer that is providing services to only a particular segment and only for only for and only for particular uses. So while of course the KYC and AML risk as of now is of paramount importance for Pakistan, because we all know that we are right now still in the so-called grey list of FATF, and we are under enhanced due diligence by the Asia Pacific Group on Anti-Money Laundering as well. So as I said, that while that would remain our paramount concern, we will make sure that, as you rightly pointed out, that a level playing field is maintained across different types of financial institutions. But a level playing field across different types of financial institutions does not mean that the same set of regulatory framework will apply to all types of financial institutions. The KYC standards and the regulatory framework relating to AML would actually be tailored to the specific needs, requirements, and in fact, more importantly, to the risk that is being faced by that particular type of financial institution. Now, the I mean, as I just mentioned, that AML risk is one of the major issue. I mean, it's of paramount importance for us. But the problem is that the compliance costs in the financial institutions have increased very substantially. So we also have to be cognizant towards that. So eKYC from that perspective can provide a good solution. And in fact, in our last meeting with Pakistan Bank Association, we have discussed it and we have decided to actually look into it further. It has the potential to reduce compliance cost of financial institutions very substantially, and at the same time, it can make the adherence with compliance standards uh, by the small financial institutions and the new players much more easy.
Thank you, Inayat. So at the same time, while you are making these regulations and regulating the industry, what challenges do you face internally in terms of training your own staff and maintaining supervision upon them to ensure that there, how would you term what would be an ethical regulator, and how are you enforcing it within State Bank of Pakistan, and what challenges you also face from the industry itself? I mean, while we do say that regulations have to provide a minimum set of protections for the consumers, but at the same time, you must have some expectations from the industry itself to rise over and above the minimum set of regulations. So, from both point of views, how does State Bank educate its the institutions which it supervise? What are State Bank's expectations of ethical behavior from them?
Okay. So as of now, about 95% of the complaints of the banking customers are actually handled by the financial institutions themselves. And of course, we have a very elaborate regulatory framework for consumer protection, and that, for example, includes the turnaround time that for different types of complaints. That includes that what sort of systems should be in place in the banks to deal with those consumer complaints. The State Bank of Pakistan and the Banking Ombudsman actually deal with a very small percentage of the complaints. Generally, those complaints that are not handled by the banks appropriately, or where the customer is not satisfied with the response provided by the banks to them. So then those customers approach State Bank of Pakistan or banking also. So right now, what we are emphasizing is that the banks have a system in place end to end that makes sure that those consumer complaints are handled in an appropriate manner. So I will just explain very briefly that how we are progressing in that respect. So we have started with the ease of lodgement of complaint. The concept is that if a customer wants to lodge a complaint, he or she should be able to do it with very easily. Now, about 85% of the complaints that are lodged with the banks, they are lodged at their call centers. The customer actually calls the call center and reports the complaint. We are making sure that all the call centers of the banks they are actually recording those complaints, and the call agents are properly trained to record those complaints. The next step is that the complaints that are lodged at the banks, they should be properly recorded to make sure that no complaint remains. If a complaint is not recorded, of course, it cannot be processed, it cannot be resolved. So the next step is that all the complaints that are lodged at the banks, either through the call centers or through emails or through surface mail, they are appropriately recorded at a centralized place. And the next is that those complaints that are lodged, they are then actually assigned to someone to look into those complaints. And then that there is a proper MIS that ensures that someone is actually monitoring that all those complaints are being processed and being resolved. And most importantly, we are also requiring that the bank conduct actually some root cause analysis to ensure that the complaints that they are receiving, what is the reason, and try to address those root causes. So while the number of complaints in the banks is increasing in absolute numbers, but if you actually look at the ratios, for example, the number of complaints in a particular area versus and divided by the number of consumers, in many cases actually we are seeing a decreasing trend. So that's one thing. In terms of the ethics training, State Bank of Pakistan has a very comprehensive code of conduct. We also conduct periodical trainings of our own staff. At the same time, we also require that each financial institution in Pakistan that we supervise has a code of conduct and appropriate trainings are conducted. We also require that each institution should have an ethical officer. In addition to that, there are also requirements for example, for whistleblowing policy that we have in State Bank of Pakistan, as well as we require that the banks should also have that whistleblowing policy and all the other relevant actually protections around that.
Thank you, Inayat. I would now like to ask Sadia Khan as to what ethical challenges SCCP faces from within the organization itself and again from the industry. So again, while there is a minimum level of regulation, but what will be your expectations from the industry in terms of minimum ethical standards?
Thank you, Gaurav. The disadvantage of coming after Inayat is that I'm probably going to emulate most of his remarks, because you'll appreciate that as a regulatory body, a lot of the measures that the State Bank is doing is also at the SCCP as well. But of course, given that the plethora of laws and rules and regulations that we administer, of course, much larger as are the number of regulators. Now, in terms of the internal challenges, very similar to the State Bank, there is digitization, and we are dealing with it by also digitizing our processes. There's a very comprehensive automation project called the LEAP project, which is underway. And it's really all about how we solicit data, how we store data, how we protect data, and what do we do with the data in terms of analysis and in terms of being able to regulate our entities much more efficiently. Now, the whole purpose is really twofold. One is in terms of the ease of doing business. How do we reduce the administrative burden, the cost of regulatory compliance from our regulators by making it much easier for them to both give us the data in a certain format and not having to have it given by various departments, solicited by various departments. So it's all being centralized in one place. But also the flip side is it enhances our supervisory activities as well. I always say that the ease of doing business are two sides of the same coin. On the one side, you need to reduce the administrative burden of regulatory compliance, but on the other side, you have to make your supervision so enhanced that the market participants have the trust and confidence in the market to be able to participate in it, and enhance the development of the particular sectors. So really, all our efforts are aimed at both of these in terms of making ourselves more digital friendly, but at the same time enhancing our capability to supervise more efficiently and more effectively as well. Now, in terms of the specific issues that you mentioned, I'll take up e-commerce that you mentioned with them as well, because that's something that we've been working with since the first e-commerce policy framework came out a year ago. As you know, we supplemented that with changes in our company's ordinance to try and enhance the participation of startups and smaller companies, and recently launched a sandbox as well. The whole concept of the sandbox is to be able to provide a safe environment for innovators to come and experiment and try new products and new ideas under regulatory supervision. And some of these that we have recently approved regarding digital insurance, digital platform for mutual funds, robo-advisory crowdfunding, is both in terms of popular demand, in terms of these companies being able to exploit the gap that exists in the market, but also in enhancing the financial access in the market. So hopefully when we are able to see these activities within the sandbox environment, we will be able to come up with the requisite regulatory provisions to further develop them, but also provide the regulatory forbearance to be able to let them develop to an extent that they are able to fill the gap that currently exists in the market. So going back to what Inayat said about data privacy, all the provisions that are currently in place vis-a-vis the regulators of the State Bank, that is our effort as well. We have already issued certain cybersecurity guidelines for various sectors of the industry in the purview. We are going to be doing that for the rest of the sectors. A lot hinges upon the Data Protection Act being implemented, which will serve as the foundation for how personal data is stored and shared. How data owned by the different companies can be utilized, similar to the GDPR, which is prevalent in the EU countries. So a lot of that depends on how that pans out. There's been a lot of debate already about various provisions in there. I think the new round of revisions will be again debated upon, but once that is finally in the domain, we will be able to take stricter measure in terms of compliance with those data protection laws that come about. Any particular aspect that you want me to focus on, Sadaf, apart from what I've already covered?
I think you have covered very nicely. The main, I think the main topic could be, that how e-commerce is flourishing and how CCP is looking at it. And I think you've explained very nicely the concept of sandboxes, because one of my concerns coming from a CFA background is that we now hear of robo-advisors and everything. And while the industry itself is very much, we are very tightly governed by CCP in terms of who can be financial advisors. So, it's important for everybody to understand, for us and for the public as well. What difference, how things will be regulated, how industry will look going forward.
So, on the issue of robo-advisory, it's important to understand that while we will be supervising them within the sandbox concept initially, they're not going to be coming in on their own. They're going to be offering the robo-advisory within a licensed entity. And that licensed entity will be subject to the code of conduct and all the issues and regulations that are currently in place. It's just an added feature that they are able to come about with certain algorithms that can provide perhaps enhanced services to the customer. What we're hoping to achieve at the end of the day is to be able to compare what the quality of the services and the results of the robo-advisory are because of these algorithms vis-a-vis what human strategies produce. And once we're able to evaluate that and seen the benefit of this down the road, then of course we go on to the next level, which is what are the regulatory mechanisms that we need to impose, both in terms of not strangulating this nascent industry, but in providing enough protection for our customers to be confident that they can venture into this area. As I keep saying, the two sides of the same coin. While we provide enough regulatory forbearance for new industries to flourish, we want to make sure that our supervision and capacity is enough to provide that trust and confidence to the market. So all these things are being tightly watched within the sandbox, and that's the whole idea, for them to be able to experiment with a totally controlled environment before they're let loose in the rest of the market. But it's not that it's going to be a free hand. I mean, they are within a certain framework, and the whole ability is to be able to assess their performance and take it from there. The important thing, of course, with these robo advisories, with AIs, is that a lot depends on the algorithms, and also improving the regulatory ability to go behind those algorithms and to be able to see the robustness of those and what features in there, I think, will also be important down the road. So what I'm saying is that a lot of our internal capacity building also has to take place in line with how the industry is developing, for us to play that proactive role in helping to develop them down the road.
Thank you, Sadia, for the detailed response. I would now request Bushra if you could discuss the challenges which Competition Commission of Pakistan is facing. Since the CCP is supervising the whole industry, and it's a very critical component. And to my understanding, I would say that there is a dearth of actual empirical data in the country. So how does CCP deal with the situation in regulating? And then where there is dearth of data, then there are more ethical issues as well towards the industry which you are regulating, and from your own organization as well. So if you could just discuss on the challenges CCP faces and how they're handling them.
Thank you, Sadaf, and hello everyone. I am very sorry, because of limited internet, you cannot see me today, but I hope everyone can hear me loud and clear. So,
yes, we can.
Regarding your question, ethics generally consist of the moral principles which govern the conduct of one person to do the right thing. As a professional accountant, the responsibility is placed upon us to conform to the fundamental principles established by International Ethics Standards Board for Accountants, comprising integrity, objectivity, independence, professional competence and due care, confidentiality, and professional behavior. Working in Competition Commission of Pakistan, which is an independent quasi-regulatory and quasi-judicial government organization, ethical challenges do appear from time to time. For instance, challenges seldom faced relate to exercising due care towards stakeholders and upholding public interest, demonstrating professional competence in the role being performed by us, and showing integrity that is being straightforward and honest in all professional and business relationships. To uphold ethics, it is essential to embed ethics into the organizational strategy and day-to-day procedures, such as promoting organizational culture which is more supportive and aware of ethical conducts and a well-publicized whistleblower policy while ensuring anonymity and protection for the individual coming forward. Especially, we also have a whistleblower policy with respect to our individuals who come forward from the industry and report us the cases. Have I covered all your aspects, Sadaf, or something is left?
Yes, I believe that you have covered mostly. So, I guess digitalization is something which should, help the Competition Commission of Pakistan most of all in regulating the industry.
Yes, actually, digitalization brings its own challenges. Like Sadia had pointed out, algorithms. Uh, our uh, our issues relating to pricing actually emerges from them. Then our sections relating to trade abuse, usually the geo blocking which happens in the digitalized world, it addresses that. Then with respect to deceptive marketing also, what sort of reasonable basis does an entity have before making any claim, or what sort of disclaimer and how they are described defines how our section 10 plays comes into the play. With respect to even the merger and post-merger transactions, how competition concerns differ uh, is how digitalization impacts.
Thank you, Bushra, for the detailed response. Now, I would like to ask Usman if you could briefly introduce your institution, the Audit Oversight Board, and also if you could highlight the ethical issues which you encounter with audit practices in your supervisory role.
Thank you, Sada. So we are the specialist regulator of the audit practice. So the reason this organization was established is to protect public interest in audit quality by overseeing and inspecting the audit work done by the audit firms. And our scope really concerns what the law says are the public interest companies, and these include listed companies and certain other types of companies such as public sector companies. So before I move towards the ethical issues, I would just want to say with the theme of digitization and just make a quick comment about how Audit Oversight Board is using technology uh, for ease of doing business for the audit firms that we regulate. And I think, as Sadia Khan was saying, technology is a great tool for ease of doing business, and it also helps regulator do a better job, a more efficient job. And I think one of the things we did quite early, and we are just like 3 years old, we established an online registration system for the audit firms that had to register with us. And what the obvious benefit is that it reduced a lot of back and forth of paper from audit firms to us and from us to audit firms. And there was no need for repeat entries and all of that. So it saves a lot of time and effort um, at the audit firms and as well as AOB. So this was something significant which technology made possible. Another thing we've done is that through our regulations, we've recognized that the notices that AOB serves can also be served through email. So that's another step in the right direction in a sense that it reduces a lot of burden both on the firm and AOB, and communication can happen very quickly and easily. And then in some of the other ways we've used technology for ease of doing business is through enabling the firms that once, let's say, we've issued a show cause notice to a firm and it has to attend a hearing, then that hearing can be held through video or audio link. And I think firms have been appreciating that. And the reason I say this is that most of our hearings we've actually moved them pure to video and audio mode. So these are some of the steps using technology, using digitization, with which we've created ease of doing business for the regulated firms. Now, coming to the question of the ethical issues we've identified while going about our work. So since July 2019, we started taking certain enforcement actions. We've issued 15 orders to date. All of these orders are public, and just in the light of these orders, I would like to say the kind of issues we faced. So some of these issues pertain to lack of rotation of audit partner after the specified period by the public interest entity. So this is quite a significant issue in a sense that there is a mandatory requirement under the Code of Corporate Governance, and there is also on the company, and there's also a mandatory requirement on the chartered accountant under the Code of Ethics. So if somebody is not rotating the audit partner as specified, there's a clear issue and quite a significant issue. And then we found that through our inspections and enforcement work, that there were certain disclosure issues as well. For instance, people were reluctant to disclose the reprimand and penal history of the audit firms. And when we actually, we dig into the data, we find that certain things have not been disclosed. For instance, certain order by CCPP penalizing an audit partner of an audit firm wasn't disclosed. So, we would take action over there. And then there were also issues pertaining to certain irregularities. For instance, somebody wasn't there in the relevant list of ICAP to be able to perform or to be able to eligible to conduct a certain audit. But he nonetheless went ahead and did it. So we also took action in these cases. So I would say that the ethical issues that we've identified so far are actually quite broad, but then we haven't been around very long, and we've started our enforcement actions relatively recently. So this is the snapshot of what I can tell you has happened over the last 14 to 15 months.
Thank you, Usman. Now, Ehsan Saab is representing the industry point of view on our panel. You have heard the regulators, voice how they're looking at the industry moving forward. So, would you like to highlight the challenges faced by the industry in the age of digitalization, and how can the regulators facilitate them? For example, one very strong point of view is also that the level of what is the level of regulation in which the economy can thrive, because as Satya rightly pointed out, there is a cost to regulation as well of implementation and having all of these frameworks as well. So if you could tell us industry point of view, how they're coping with it and what challenges do they face?
Okay, well, thank you very much. But first of all, I want to congratulate the organizers. 4 out of the 7 people on the panel are women, and of course, promoting gender balance is one of the objectives of PBC's Pakistan Business Council Center of Excellence in Responsible Business. So I think congratulations on that score. Then I think the second major point I want to make is that I'm overwhelmed by the number of regulators that I've come across in this panel. But also, this entire morning, I've been spending with the Board of Investment on an initiative to deal with deregulation. So a little bit of perspective about regulation. The regulatory environment that Pakistan has inherited primarily from the colonial masters is a very controlled mindset and a suspicious mindset oriented set of regulations. And then to make matters worse, over the time, they become multi-layered. So we've got local regulations, we've got provincial regulations, and of course we've got national or federal regulations. So these create duplication, they create complexity. Most of these regulations require manual and paper-based applications and processing. They're intransparent. It doesn't really. It's very not it's unpredictable as to how long it's going to take to come to a decision. And going back to the duplication, just 2 examples. Because of the multiplicity of the regulatory sort of levels, you today are required to have, each province can have its own food standards. So you end up with 4 food standards for each one for each province, and of course the federal capital has to have its own food standards. There are 5, and then of course Azad Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan will presumably also in time have food standards. Now, one initiative that the government of Pakistan has taken is to harmonize them, so that's a move in the right direction. Another one in the ambit of SCCP, and by the way, we work very closely with SCCP and we really value the interaction that we have, is a requirement in the Companies Act 2017 to declare your interest in foreign companies, no matter how small they are, even if you have 1 share. Even despite the fact that you may have already declared that to the FBR, to the State Bank of Pakistan, to anybody else who is very interested in knowing, but yet you have to file that return whenever you acquire these interests, and there's no value addition at all. There's no significant, in fact, I would say any addition to the investor, knowledge into the operating environment of a particular company. The World Bank led deregulatory or the deregulatory initiative, which the government of Pakistan has now adopted, is a move in the right direction. We believe in business that the regulations have to, of course, control, regulate, but they also need to enable and empower. And that balance, unfortunately, we come across business. So I just want to now turn to a more positive side and talk a little bit about the enabling environment that regulations or regulatory environment can create. One of them, and going back to Dr. Inayat Hussain, is in the realm of e-commerce. And so, Pakistani businesses now want to go global, and they want to be able to sell their goods on platforms like Amazon, etc. And I'd like to very much hear about what is happening there. We know again, and that again goes back to the state bank domain, that housing or promoting housing finance is a major initiative that the government is taking, and the state bank is supporting, and the banks are all cooperating. But securing title and ensuring that over a 25-year long mortgage period, that security of title is maintained, then the use of blockchain, whether is that something that the State Bank of Pakistan would like to promote, and then this Roshan Digital concept where the KYC has been done by a bank, not by a broker, I think is something that the local investors are also very keenly interested in seeing implemented, because local investors are generally reluctant to share their confidential information with brokers, but they are, they have to, obviously, for other reasons, share that with the banks. And that something that State Bank of Pakistan might want to promote. So starting with a bit of negative, but ending on the positive. Thank you.
Thank you, Ehsan Saab. So, drawing from a discussion, if I could ask Inayat Saab, how you intend to take blockchain, for example, forward. What's State Bank's view on it?
Let me actually comment on some of the very good observations made by Ehsan Saab. So to start with, I think that one very important thing is that the regulators should be accountable. So when you issue a regulation, there should be some sort of cost-benefit analysis, and that cost-benefit analysis actually should be available. So from our perspective, for example, whenever we issue a regulation, we actually consult Pakistan Banks Association, and generally then there is a very detailed deliberation. We actually explain that what is the benefit. We also take into account what would be the cost of compliance. And in many cases, actually, if we feel that the regulations can impact certain other segments of the society, we actually do consult those stakeholders as well. For example, recently we have consulted chambers, including Pakistan businesses, Pakistan Business Council, and other associations. So I think that's very important. There should be some sort of yardstick or criteria for this sort of accountability. Now, coming on some of the issues that have been, or the areas that have been highlighted by Ehsan Saab, on the use of blockchain, we have actually explained to some of the stakeholders that approach State Bank of Pakistan that we, as such, State Bank of Pakistan has not put any restriction on the use of blockchain technology by financial institutions in Pakistan. So if banks in Pakistan wants to use blockchain technology, they can use it just like they can use any other technology or software. We have actually spent a lot of time and energy on sort of increasing our understanding of the blockchain technology. And sometime back, actually, we were approached by a couple of financial institutions, but I understand that those plans have not actually gone through. So as far as from our perspective, the use of blockchain technology is concerned, there is as such no restriction. Of course, we will be looking at the usage, because that would be sort of an innovative solution, and we would be very much interested in understanding it and learning from that. But I need to clarify that while we have not put any restriction on the use of blockchain technology, we have actually restricted the use of bitcoins and these sort of coins, because of the reason that these are the products that cannot be regulated, and some of the jurisdictions that try to regulate them, they actually couldn't do so effectively. So we need to actually differentiate between the blockchain technology, the technology underlying the bitcoins and these sort of cryptocurrencies, and those cryptocurrencies themselves. Just a clarification. Now, in terms of hosting plans, yeah, we understand that the title is actually perhaps one of the major issues. But unfortunately, again, that issue is something beyond our jurisdiction. I mean, it relates to the registration authorities, to the revenue authorities. What we are trying to do is to, one, provide an enabling framework for the financial institutions to do it as easily as they can, in terms of easing our regulatory framework and creating necessary incentives. That recently, if you would have seen, that we have actually allows the banks to reduce their cash reserve requirement if they increase their mortgage lending, and that practically means that they would have up to a certain amount cash at zero cost, because the CRR that they place at State Bank of Pakistan actually doesn't carry any return, so they can use that amount for lending. So that that way they can earn a very substantial actually return. Of course, that has been supplemented with it is a stick and carrot. So while the carrot is releasing cash reserve requirement, the stick is that if they don't do housing finance, they would have to actually put additional cash reserve with State Bank of Pakistan. So that would actually increase very substantially the cost of not doing housing finance. So we are hoping that there would be substantial increase in lending in this particular area in the coming few quarters. On the KYC by brokers, as such, State Bank of Pakistan would not have any issue if, for example, the brokerage firms use the KYC that has been done by banks and rely on them. But I believe that that is something that falls under the jurisdiction of SCCP. So I think Sadia would be in a better position to comment on that. On the e-commerce, actually, we are doing all we can to encourage e-commerce. We understand that it is good for the economic development. It is good for small businesses in Pakistan, and it is actually extremely necessary to increase the market outreach for, especially for small businesses in Pakistan. So in that respect, if Pakistan Business Council or any stakeholder has any suggestion, we would be actually very eager to consider.
So, Isansa, would you like to give a suggestion or industry's point of view, or maybe even later, we can.
No, I can say something now. Actually, we found that particularly in the COVID times, the one institution of the government that has really been very helpful to business has been the State Bank of Pakistan. And coincidentally, during that time also, we engaged with the State Bank of Pakistan on a set of regulations to enable Pakistani businesses to put their goods on the global platforms like Amazon, etc. So State Bank of Pakistan is very cooperative, and they've come up with a set of regulations which obviously can always be improved. So I think that's a good way forward. I just going back into the regulatory environment. I just wanted to give you an idea of a vicious cycle that operates. When you have over-regulation, you over-regulate only the formal sector because you can never reach the informal sector, unfortunately. And the formal sector is very narrow, is very small. The number of bureaucrats that are trying to regulate are quite a lot still. So the kind of intrusion that you get into the formal sector becomes relatively high. Then coupled with high input costs, like Pakistan has the highest energy cost in Asia. So what does that do to the business? It forces the business to then seek protection from the government. And there are some sectors that have that ability to get it. And once those sectors have got that protection, the end result is that you have low productivity because that takes away the incentive to be productive. You have poor quality of goods, you have high cost of goods, and you're generally not competitive. So that's a vicious cycle that operates. So deregulating in a responsible manner, obviously, and making enabling regulations becomes that much more important. That's all. Thank you.
Duplication of regulation is definitely an issue. So I was having a discussion in the morning, and we were discussing that let's say for an e-commerce fund venture or any venture, The payment system would probably be governed in the state bank, then registration would be through the SCCP, and then Competition Commission of Pakistan will have its own role, and then the Audit Oversight Board would come through the purview on the auditors who are auditing the financial statements. So it's very important that the regulators, and I'm sure that you do as well, that you have joint sessions for a holistic regulatory approach to facilitate businesses. So I believe that, Aksar, we don't have any questions from the audience.
I believe, Sadaf, your questions were comprehensive enough, and I think that we have answered most of the audience's questions as well. There is a concern about cryptocurrency. I think if I would say, Inayat Saab, if you could speak on that. Cryptocurrency with restrictions, what should we do about them? And Asaf, I think you are on mute, if you can comment on that.
Yeah, thank you. So what do you want me to explain that what were our concerns related to cryptocurrencies because of which we put restrictions on cryptocurrencies or something else? I'm sorry, I couldn't actually get.
Yes. What are our concerns, which is why those restrictions are in place? Yeah. If you could elaborate on that.
Okay, so the very first concern is that the cryptocurrencies have actually been developed with the very objective that these should not be regulated. So the primary concern is that no regulator actually can regulate the cryptocurrencies. The reason being that these cryptocurrencies can be transferred from one person to another with lot of ease, and it is not possible to actually trace the movement of funds through those cryptocurrencies. So that was the very basic concern. The second was that for State Bank of Pakistan, we were concerned that the cryptocurrencies were being used, and I understand that after the restrictions by State Bank of Pakistan, that quantum reduced substantially. But the cryptocurrencies have the potential to actually transfer value from Pakistan to other countries without any consideration. So that was the second concern. The third, and I think again a very critical issue, was that the cryptocurrencies can be used for grey market, and that's why we didn't want the financial institution in Pakistan to deal in these cryptocurrencies. And even if you look at the international experience, the jurisdictions which were previously pretty synthetic and in certain cases actually were sort of facilitating the cryptocurrencies, they also backed out after having bad experiences with cryptocurrencies. So the international experience was also actually sort of, as I said, what we learned from other regulators also led us to the same belief that we shouldn't actually allow the cryptocurrencies in Pakistan.
Thank you, Inayat. And one last question I would like to ask Usman. There's a discussion in the industry regarding the level of audit fees from the point of view that is it sufficient, is it too low, is it the reason why perhaps audit firms are not investing enough in the systems or in resources to come up with the quality of financial statements which we expect from them. So could you just, from your own experience and your own interaction, give your views on it? So, and another aspect would be that, from the point of view of digitization, so would it help, and what is the level of digitization between you and the audit firms that we regulate, and then again, the audit firms and the companies which they regulate?
Okay, that's a great question regarding our sphere. And it's very interesting that you asked that because we conducted two surveys, one of audit partners, all the audit partners of firms registered with us. And then we also went ahead and surveys audit committees, more than 30 audit committees of public interest companies. And we found a very interesting difference in their point of view. So 80% of the audit partners in our survey, they responded that the audit fee is too low. And then on the other hand, 80% of the members of the audit committees of public interest companies said that it is too high. So, people are divided depending on their perspective. But I think ICAP and members have been building a case that compared to other jurisdictions through evidence, audit fees in general, because one has to be careful to generalize in some of the regulated sectors, they may not be so low, but in others they could be. And it creates, the level of fees of audit, it creates ethical issues. And, do the public interest companies really value the audit, or do they really want to keep audit fee to a minimum so that, auditors do not have a lot of incentive to work harder and dig into more detail and spend more time? And then on the other hand, you have audit firms, and as you rightly said, they have to invest in systems and processes, and most importantly in HR. And it's all in the public domain. There is an ongoing debate about how fairly or otherwise young women and men of Pakistan who are working for audit firms are being paid. Are they being paid fairly or not? And the question goes back to, again, it's an ethical question, and it goes back to the issue of audit fees. And people are divided, but to be honest, I think that in order to make progress, in order to make investments, and as you said, in order to have more digitization. So we had another question in our surveys where we asked the CFOs. So we did another survey of CFOs, and 100 CFOs participated in our survey. And we asked them, where do they see a greater role of technology? Is it in the preparation of financial statements, or is it in the audit? And most of the CFOs said that it is in the preparation of the financial statements as opposed to audit. And this is also what we're seeing in practice when we talk to the audit partners, because the vast majority of audit firms, they do not use any audit software. So the use of audit software is really confined to some of the largest firms in the industry. So audit fee, ethics, digitalization, they may seem disconnected, but they are very much interconnected.
Thank you, Usman. So if we don't have any more questions, Aksa, should we close the session?
Yes, Sadaf. I think we've answered most of the questions. Thank you so much for doing this as well. Yeah.
I would like to thank all the panelists on behalf of the organizers for their valuable time. In the closing, I would just like to say that enforcing ethical behavior and building trust is the responsibility of both regulators and the industry. So when we join hands together, we can truly progress towards building our economy on a solid base. So thank you so much for your time. And I think we have had an invaluable session for our audience today. So would you also, I would also like to request the panelists if, for their own closing remarks as well. So Usman, would you like to, if we were to start with Usman, would you like to say something on the closing?
Yeah, I would just briefly say that this is a very important issue, and to be honest, it's great to have all the regulators together and the industry together to actually get to the bottom of the issues, what is on people's mind, how relevant we are. And I think the most important thing you just said in your closing remarks, because it's all about the economy. I think the dignity of people can only be maintained if they have a decent income. And for that, all the parts in the economy have to work. And regulators have a role, all the businesses have a role. And we have a very much shared purpose that, we want Pakistan and our economy to prosper so that our people can have a better life. And this is what it's all about. Thank you.
Inasa, would you like to share your thoughts with us?
Thank you, sir. So I think that the digitization would actually bring its own challenges, and it is very important that we should actually strike a balance. I mean, the regulators. There shouldn't, of course, as Sansad said, there shouldn't be too much regulations because that would increase the cost of doing business for the companies, and that would actually be counterproductive. At the same time, there should at least be a minimum set of regulations that ensures that trust and there is trust building in the companies and the consumers of the companies. In case of, for example, State Bank of Pakistan, the customers of the financial institutions, they feel that they can do transactions with those entities with confidence and with trust.
Thank you, Inayat. Sadia, would you like to share your thoughts with us?
Sure. I think what I like to leave in terms of messages that it's not regulation for the sake of regulation. It's regulation in order to protect the small investors, policyholders, but also to try and strike a balance so that we are able to develop the nascent industries. I take the point of overregulation. I take the point of too many regulators as compared also to the number of regulators, the large number being in the informal sector. But I think we're in a unique position in this country to be able to play that dual role of helping the market to develop while also having enough regulations in place to protect against malpractices. And just in terms of that, I didn't mention it ahead, but some of the challenges that we face from the market are really in terms of misrepresentation, mis-selling, and a lot of our regulations and rules are really in an effort to try and stem that tide. But the point well taken from the market, I think there's benefit in collaboration between regulators. There's benefit in reducing the duplication of information from the regulators, in reducing the administrative cost of regulatory compliance, but at the same time having those minimum standards and ethical practices in place. And that can only come with greater training and awareness and self-discipline from the market as well, to be able to do our job better for the future. So that's all I'd like to say.
Thank you, Sadia. Bushra, would you share your thoughts with us?
Thank you. From my perspective, I think an applied approach is required with respect to real-world situations in order to build knowledge for emerging technologies and digital issues being faced by organizations. Especially vis-a-vis Commission frequently deals with cases of cartelization and trade abuse, deceptive marketing, and also reviews applications for mergers and acquisitions. In this regard, a clear set of policies and regulations should be designed to allow for enforcement actions against dominant digital platforms, monitor the behavior of competitors to identify potential collusions in digital markets, to identify the market structure of digital markets, as they are quite different from bricks and mortar models that we are used to, and competition concerns therefrom arising from post transactions of mergers and acquisitions also involve around the database and the use of data, which is very different to the ones that we are used to. Hence, we need to be more cognizant of all these issues and adapt our strategies accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you, Bushra. Ahsan Saab, would you like to share your message with us?
Okay, sure. I actually don't want to talk about regulation at all. I want to talk about the role and responsibility of businesses, but particularly large businesses, the kind of businesses that belong to the Pakistan Business Council. Because currently the number of business organizations that belong to us represent something like 12 or 13% of the GDP. They contribute 25% of the tax revenue. They generate 40% of the exports, etc. So they have a lot of influence. So some of the challenges that are facing the economy are what? They are, the fact that informal sector is very large, and that there is a need to formalize the sector. We can always look to the regulators like FPR and so on to try and do that. But equally, if we as owners or operators or senior managers of businesses stop dealing with informal sector, we will end up promoting the formal sector. Now, I know sounds very simplistic, but carried over a period of time, that can happen. The need to create jobs. Of course, the government has to give an enabling environment. At the end of the day, the investment comes out of our pockets, the pockets of the businessmen. So they need to expand, they need to sophisticate, they need to reach out to different markets, etc. In the process, also expand the export base in terms of products as well as the destinations. Reduce reliance on imports. That's the call of the economy. We need to promote a greater gender incorporation or inclusion. Yes, we can always look to the government to legislate, but surely the government cannot legislate 50% inclusion of women. I think that's a job that only business can do at the end of the day. So that's something that we can do. And last but not the least, environment. Becoming more environmentally responsible. The bare minimum requirement that the regulatory demands may put on the business, we have to go beyond that. And we have to do things that are well and truly above the minimum required. So that on that note, that's my summation. Thank you.
Thank you, Sansam. That was well said. It was a pleasure being with you all today. And Aksa, over to you now.
Thank you so much, Sadaf, for hosting today's session as well. And thank you all of our panelists for being here today. It was a great session. I think our audience has learned a lot as well. We have 2 sessions tomorrow. And I think कि हमारी audiences जिनको आज का session बहुत अच्छा लगा है, वो कल ज़रूर tune in करें क्योंकि कल के sessions भी बहुत इनको interesting लगेंगे. We have a session that starts at 4 and another one at 6. So please do tune in tomorrow as well.